Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today's the first day of September and we have just had the most beautiful early fall weather. Like, it's not quite fall yet, but we've had just like blue sky, great temperatures, a little bit of a breeze, the leaves are starting to change, and I am feeling completely reinvigorated. I think it also helps that we're coming out of a long weekend. We went and visited my mom with my partner and my dog, so it's just like really nice, and I am like ready to tackle stuff in September. And I think the first thing I want to work on is catching up on some arcs, because I have quite a few backlist arcs from this year that I have not gotten to. So I think we're gonna pick out 3 of them. I have 2 that I want to save for October. I have plans for October, but I have 3 that I'd really like to get to that all sound super fun. So I think that's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna start with the one that comes out later this month. It's the only one that I have that's for a book that is not yet out. So this is The Killer Question by Janice Hallett. This is where we're starting, and I'll talk about this again in a minute, but I do want to mention that the other 2 I'm going to read are The God in the Guaysen by Sophie Kim, which is the second book in the Fates Thread Romantasy Urban Fantasy series, which I really enjoyed the first book of that series. And then the other one is A Novel Murder by, I think it's E.C. Nevin, which I have never read from this author before. I think it might be a debut, but it's a pen name for somebody who is well known within the publishing industry, it looks like. So I'm really curious about this. It's about a murder mystery. It takes place at like a crime writers convention. Sounds really fun, and I just think these are all going to be really enjoyable ways to kick off September. So that's what we're doing, and to start, I have started The Killer Question. I'm about 25% into it actually, and I am having a great time. This one is following a group of people at a pub where there was this pub quiz that happened every week, and eventually things went south, and we don't know exactly how yet, but eventually a body turned up in the river next to the pub, and this weird team started showing up to the pub quiz who were winning every single week. So then now, several years later, the nephew of the people that ran the pub at the time has returned, and he wants to turn this into a documentary. So he's gathering all this information and sending it to pitch as a documentary idea. So that's the setup of the story, and I'm just enjoying it so much. I think if you liked The Appeal, but were a little bit disappointed by the fact that that one is all emails, this one is definitely better, and this one's going to be for you, because this has all of the things I loved about The Appeal, with its like small town kind of insular community. You're looking at like the messy relationships and intra-group politics of a group of people that are connected to each other because of some sort of like social activity they all do together. And you're looking at that and all of the like little threads of mystery that emerge out of the ways that these people are interacting with each other. It's just messy and fun, and it's all of that from The Appeal, but with more mixed media. So The Appeal was all emails. This one has got like WhatsApp messages, there's witness statements, there's flyers, there are some emails, there's just all kinds of different types of media, which I think that Janice Hallett, across her subsequent books after The Appeal, has really mastered using multiple kinds of media to tell a story. So I feel like this is a culmination of the ideas from The Appeal with that use of a broader kind of media. I'm just really enjoying it so far. We have these really interesting characters. We have these kind of odd bar owners, these people who opened a pub when they didn't really know how to run a pub. We have these different groups of people involved in the pub quiz, including one team that just takes it like way too seriously. We have this group of different owners of different pubs in the area who are all connected because they have the same landlord, and it's really interesting. I'm having a great time. I don't have any theories yet on where this is going, because I feel like Janice Hallett always defies my expectations. I always think that I know where her stories are going, and then I get proven completely wrong. So I'm kind of reserving judgment for the moment, but I'm enjoying the way that things are unfurling. I think we're getting a lot of interesting plot threads with the weird pub quiz team, and this one guy who's taking the quiz just like way too seriously, and this like weird dynamic between the 2 people, Sue and Mal, who run the pub. So I'm just having a great time. I started this while we were visiting my mom, and I could barely put this down. It was so good. So I'm gonna go read some more of this, and I'm planning to check in at 50%, but it's more likely that I will end up just devouring the end of this book, and you'll see me when I've finished it. But for now, I'm gonna go dive in more and find out whodunit, because it says on the cover, the answer is murder, the question is whodunit, which I think is very good. I made it to 50%, and I have managed to contain my eagerness to just devour the whole thing, or else I would have been up very late last night. But I read quite a ways into the evening and managed to get to 52%. And I did want to briefly check in, because I've gotten to the first kind of big reveal. We know from the summary for the book that there's something in the background of the 2 pub owners, Sue and Mal, that is that they're trying to hide. It's something secret. And I just got to the first big reveal of part of what that is. I think there's more to it, but I've gotten to the first, like, here's what they did before, here's what they were up to before they were owners of this pub, running a pub quiz every week. And I'm really intrigued to see how it's all gonna pull together at the end, because it's introduced a new element that's reminding me more of like the mysterious case of the Alberton Angels and some of the directions that that goes. So I'm really intrigued to see where this is going. I'm also really enjoying Sue and Mel as characters because they almost feel like these kind of bumbling owners. They've opened this pub, they really don't know how pubs work, and they're just slowly managing to get this business off the ground. They have this kind of weird way of interacting with people where Mal is kind of brusque and then Sue is very like sweet and talkative, and I almost have this like sense that they're bumbling but that there's something else going on behind the scenes, like maybe they're sharper than we think. So I'm really curious. I'm really enjoying it. We've also had some other things that have kind of shaken up where the story is going. Some things have happened with this odd quiz team that's been showing up. They're called the Shadow Knights, and so there's something that's kind of changed with the Shadow Knights. And we also have more information about the body found in the river. So the body has been found. It happens fairly early, and we're getting more reveals on who that was and how they're connected to these events. So I'm just having a great time. There's a lot of different threads going on, and I'm really curious to see how all of these threads are going to pull together, because they all feel quite different. They feel like they should be really disconnected, but I think that that's where Janice Hallett really shines, is she's really good at putting out these different story elements that seem like they're random or disconnected, and then pulls them all together in this really interesting way where you're like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. How did I not see that? So I'm just excited. I'm excited to see where it's going. So yeah, I just needed to gush for a minute. But I'm gonna try and finish this. I don't know if I'll finish it tonight. I'm gonna try, but I'm also streaming this evening. I'm streaming a game called Best Served Cold, which is very fun. Also, funnily enough, happens in a speakeasy, so like a bar establishment. That one, it's a murder mystery thing where you're playing a bartender at a speakeasy in a kind of alternate history fictional country during like the 1920s, during the Prohibition era. And you're basically working kind of alongside a detective to try and use your connections to the community to try and solve mysteries, basically. And it's really fun. It's a lot of reading from me. I have to talk a lot, but it's just a good time. So I'm going to be streaming some more of that tonight, and I don't know if I'll manage to finish this, but I'm going to try and put a good dent in it at least. I have finished The Killer Question, and I absolutely loved it. I think I said earlier that it was reminding me a little bit of The Appeal in its focus on a group of people in a small town that are connected because of a social activity they participate in, and it definitely continues to feel that way throughout, but it also starts to bring in some of the like wild twists that like recontextualize everything that I loved about The Alberton Angels, The Mysterious Case of the Alberton Angels. For me, this is like the best of The Appeal mixed with the best of The Mysterious Case of the Alberton... I can't even get the name of the book out. The Mysterious Case of the Alberton Angels. It's just the best of both worlds for me, and I had so much fun. We get some really crazy twists in the latter half. There were some things that I realized I had kind of picked up on, but I hadn't figured out the significance of them, so it was really fun getting the reveals. It was like, okay, no, I was on the right track, but I just didn't know what the answer was going to be. So it was great. I can't tell you much about it because I really do not want to spoil any of the twists in here for you, because there are some wild ones, and I will say that a lot of them you have to pay attention to like very specific things said by some of the characters, but also like their personalities. I feel like the personalities are a really big important piece of the puzzle in here, so I don't want to like throw out any accidental spoilers, so I'm just gonna stop there. I need to figure out how to get my like thoughts into a coherent written review so I can get that up on NetGalley and Goodreads. But this book is coming out soon. I think you'll hopefully be seeing this vlog before it comes out. It comes out on the September 23rd, I believe. And I'm really excited for more people to read this, especially my best friend. I need her to read this so we can talk about it. It's just such a good time. Yeah, so that is one arc down, very successful, very excited to continue on. And I think next we're going to go to The God and the Gwison. I think I want, or Gwison. I'm not sure if it's Gwison or Gwison. I'll need to look that up. Anyway, I think we're gonna go to that. Second book in Fate's Thread, which is a series by Sophie Kim of like urban fantasy romance, murder mystery. it's kind of several things at once. I think they're inspired by K-dramas. First one is a lot of fun, so I think this will be fun too. And I think we're gonna go to that one second just because I want to break it up a little bit. The third one I'm gonna read, A Novel Murder, is also like a murder mystery thing. So I think having The God and the Guisan, or the Guisan, in the middle will help break things up for me a little bit, so I'm not just reading a lot of the same thing. Before I do that though, I do need to take a little bit of a break from ARCs because I have a library book right here I need to finish. Another murder mystery. Well, I don't know if this one's a murder mystery. This one's a missing persons mystery, but it's another mystery novel, and that's the other reason I kind of want to do the fantasy romance one next. So yeah, I'm gonna take a little break, get through this library book so I can turn it in, and then I'll be back with some thoughts on a fantasy romance book. I'm almost halfway through The God and the Guisan and suddenly remembered that I was making this video and I should probably check in and let you know what this book is about. And I'm going to attempt to do this without spoiling the first book in the series. But if you haven't read the first book, it's The God and the Gumiho, and that one is it's urban fantasy romance with a fallen trickster god and a gumiho. They're solving a mystery together. It just so happens that one of the two people or two creatures that the god is hunting is the gumiho who's working with him. There's lots of shenanigans ensue. It's really, really fun. And the second book continues to be just a pure hit of dopamine. I'm really enjoying this one. So in the first book, we're following Ahsoka and Hani as they are investigating some murders. Some of them are done by the Scarlet Fox, who happens to be Hani, but some of them are done by a specific kind of demon, and so it's like a really dangerous form of demon. It's the only thing that can like truly kill a god, and so they need to find it before it like kills a bunch of people and potentially wreaks much bigger havoc on the world. So that's the first book. In this book, we're following Sokka and now Kisa, who he meets on a cruise in the underworld. We're following them as they're investigating his older brother's murder on the cruise ship. And it's just really fun. I really like the relationship dynamic between Sokka and Kisa as they're getting to know each other and kind of forming this tenuous friendship. And we have some recurring characters from the first book that are, I think, interesting to have here given the context. I can't tell you the context because I don't want to spoil that for you, but if you know, you know. And we also have some other like really great friendships. In this book, Sokka has a therapist, and I find his relationship with her really interesting. The way that he like is frustrated by the process of therapy, but he has this like really deep respect for her, which I find really cool. And then also Kisa has a really good friendship with a guy named Hajun, and I really like the relationships in here aside from this kind of main duo. The main duo, very fun. I really enjoy them, but I'm really enjoying all of the other relationships that are cropping up throughout the book as well. So having a lot of fun with that. And the murder mystery is fun. There's lots of some more like shenanigans ensue kinds of things. It's very funny, and I think the thing that I love about these books is that Sophie Kim really expertly swings between like silly, goofy fun and really emotional, poignant moments. So there's lots of moments in here where I've even kind of teared up and then immediately turned around and been laughing my ass off. Like it's so funny, but it's so rich in other emotions as well. So I'm just having a great time. It's so good. I love the way Sophie Kim writes. Like the writing itself on a sentence level is fine. I wouldn't call it like particularly beautiful or anything. It gets the job done, but I think it's just like very funny and does such a good job of convincing me of both the humor and those moments that are a little bit darker, or those moments where it's a little more focused on like the interpersonal relationships. It's a good time. They're such fun books, and I'm trying to be vague here. I know it's probably really like overly vague, but since this is the second book in a series, I do want to try and not spoil the first book for you because I think the first book is really fun as well, and you should check it out if it sounds like it'd be up your alley. I finally finished The God, and I think it's the Guisan, I think is the correct pronunciation. I had to listen to it a few times, I think that's correct. But I finally finished it, and I loved this book so much. There were a few things that I kept thinking, oh, it's gonna be like a 4.5 star. And then every time I thought that, it was like the author heard me and was like, no, don't worry, I wrapped that up. I give you an explanation. And so every single time I thought something was going to like chip away at my enjoyment of the book. It got answered, it got explained, it got worked into the plot in some significant way, and I just really appreciated that. So what I loved about this book was that the mystery feels really satisfying. I think that the clues are all there, and if you're paying attention, you can figure it out. I think I got like some pieces of it, which made me feel very smart. I kind of figured out what were some of the red herrings. I kind of had a sense of who was probably behind it. And I felt very cool and smart for figuring that out. It didn't feel like it was overly simple, but also not overly complicated. It was like well plotted, well paced, and I just had a great time with the mystery. And then it had all of these fantastic relationships in it. This is a fantasy romance, so we are following the development of a relationship between Sokka and Kisa, but the way that that developed I thought was really interesting, and it was supported by them developing friendships with people around them. So we also have Kisa and her best friend Hajun's friendship. We have Kisa and her developing relationship to Somi from the first book. We have Sokka and his kind of changing relationship to Somi and his developing sort of friendship with Hajun. And there's Sokka's relationship to his brother, which is really significant. His relationship to his nephew is really significant. His relationship to his therapist is really significant. And like, it all felt very believable, very like messy but real, and I really enjoyed all the different kinds of relationships. I think that's the thing I really like in romance stories, is when there's a lot of other significant relationships that also matter a lot to the characters, where it's not just all about the romance, but there are all of these other important friendships and family relationships and even rivalries that kind of help shape who they are. I also felt like the events of the first book had really significant weight in this one. There were a lot of moments that called back to something that had happened in the first book in a way that felt very, not believable is not the word I want. I'm trying to figure out what word I want. It felt like everything was very well thought through, I think is what it is that like there were these very clear connections to events that had happened in the first book, and Sophie Kim had thought about like, okay, how is that going to impact Sokka and Somi and Kisa and how they feel about each other, and how is it going to impact the ways that they interact with the world. And I just thought that was really clever, and I liked that it felt like those events mattered a lot beyond just the setup for the plot in this one. I also thought the plot was just fun. It was a good plot, and I thought the villain was interesting. And I do feel like the ending of this wraps up really neatly and really quickly. They defeat the villain pretty easily, but I think it worked for me because the reason they're able to defeat the villain so easily is because of Sokka's character growth throughout the story. He is able to overcome the villain in this one because he has grown as a person, because he has started to believe in his own like worthiness of love and found relationships that are actually healthy for him, and I really liked that. I also liked that it felt very Sokka centric, but it didn't feel like he was the only character that mattered, because it also had a lot of development for Kisa as she started to kind of grapple with her own self-worth and her feelings of like not having done enough during her life, and then taking advantage of this opportunity to do something and really like live in her afterlife, which I thought was great. So it's a really fun book. It's just pure dopamine, but in a way that I feel like it's not just silly goofy fun. It also has a lot of really poignant moments, a lot of really interesting discussions. Also, I have to give Sophie Kim props for having a really realistic seeming depiction of a therapist, where I'm like, oh, he's actually getting therapy. This isn't just like fake therapy, fantasy therapy. He's actually getting therapy. So I really appreciated that. I liked how realistic that felt. Yeah, every minute of this I thoroughly enjoyed, and I'm glad that I finally got around to reading it. So we are moving on now from that to our final arc, which I will try to click back over to. We'll see if the Kindle cooperates with me. Let's see if it gives me the cover, which is really just the title on it. But yeah, I'm reading A Novel Murder. That is our third arc for this video, and so far I'm not very far in. I just read the first couple of pages before bed last night, but we're following a woman named, I think, Jane Hepburn, who is an author, but she's not been very successful yet, and she's kind of scheming different ways to make her book successful. And one of the things she decides to do is during this major kind of like mystery, crime, and thriller book fair event, she decides to secretly rearrange some of the shelves in the big book tent so that her books are like kind of front and center, instead of being shoved back onto the highest shelf. And in doing so, she happens to find a body of her literary agent, and this kicks off a murder investigation. And being a kind of mystery writer, she decides she wants to try and solve it herself. So it sounds very fun. I'm enjoying the first few pages. The writing is pretty good, and I like that Jane is this kind of, not fully unethical, but she's like, yeah, I'm just gonna go secretly move stuff around and like try to make myself look cooler and more successful. Like, I don't know, she's striking me as an interesting figure so far, and I'm curious to see how she's going to like tackle the murder investigation. So, not very far in. Like I said, I'm on like chapter 1, but having a good time so far, and yeah, really glad that I'm finally getting to these arcs. I have been struggling so bad with reading this year. I've been slumping on and off all year, and I've had very few books that I've really truly loved. So it's really exciting to me that I've read 2 arcs so far for this video, and both of them have been like 5-star reads. So that's just really fun. It's really helping with my motivation, and I'm excited to dig into this 3rd one and see what I think. Well, I am sorry to say that we are not completing this vlog with 3 5-star books. That would have been so exciting if we had. But instead, I'm going to be DNFing A Novel Murder by E.C. Nevin. And this is a case of, it's not a bad book, it's just not a book for me. I am not the right reader for this book. This is a story following Jane Hepburn, who is this kind of down on her luck artist. Her mother's passed away recently, and her books aren't selling well. Her editor and her agent have both been ghosting her. She's really just having a rough time, but she decides to go to this major crime fiction festival called Killer Lines to try and network a little bit, get her book out there, try and like do a little bit better, do some of that self-promotion work. But while she's there, she decides to sneak into the book tent to rearrange some of the books and ends up discovering the body of her agent, Carrie Marks, and this kicks off, you know, whole like investigation in the midst of this crime fiction festival. This isn't working for me for a couple of reasons. One, I don't think I'm clicking well with Jane, the main character. I think that she is very, very relatable. She's this woman who's very tall, she's single, she's kind of down on her luck, as I said, and so she's very insecure, especially about her height and her looks, and she spends a lot of time comparing herself to other women, constantly talking about what other women are wearing and how glamorous and beautiful they are and how successful they are, and I just find that is really wearing on me. I do think she's a very relatable character. Like, I think if you can relate to that feeling of like being an imposter, Jane is very relatable, but I think for me it's just not working because I'm finding it really unpleasant to be in Jane's head for extended periods of time, and given that she is our main character, that's hard. Also, it's just that I really dislike when a book is like, I have to describe everything that every character is wearing. I personally find that kind of annoying, unless it is doing something to tell me about the character themselves or about their culture or something. I just don't find constant descriptions of everything everybody is wearing very interesting. So that's one part of it. Another part of it is I feel like the pacing isn't really working for me. Not much has happened, given that I'm 140 pages in. I should have said that. I'm DNFing at about 36%. I'm a little past a 1/3 mark, but I'm about 140 pages in, and we get the body discovery on page 1. And then we have this kind of, we kick back in time to look at the events leading up to that, and then we kind of continue forward from there. So we get like 70 pages that I would say are mostly Jane being insecure, and these one-off POVs of different characters who clearly have some sort of connection to the victim that is going to be unraveled as the book progresses. And then the second 70 pages are Jane makes some friends and starts investigating, and at this point they've interviewed 2 people. That's pretty much it. And I'm finding that this just isn't working for me because I want more to be happening. I want there to be more like lines of investigation, and I want there to be like more complications to what they're doing, and so far they just haven't really hit any complications. People have just like talked to them, and I don't really understand why the people involved, or these like people who have connections to Carrie, are willing to talk to them about the reasons that they had some sort of like altercation with her. I don't get it, because they don't really have any authority. They're not really important people in any way, but they're also not like people who, if they figure out the answer, can like do much aside from like go to the police who are already present investigating. So like they're doing their investigation and the police are over here doing their investigation, and they're not interacting. And I just don't really quite understand why like the other editor that or this one editor that Carrie had an altercation with is willing to talk to them, but then like very clearly becomes defensive and is like hiding something. So we keep having this where they're interviewing someone and they have like no trouble getting to the point where they're interviewing them and convincing them to talk to them. But then that person gets very suddenly like, oh, I have to leave now because I'm hiding something. And then they like, you know, push the characters away, and then the character's like, I think they're hiding something. And I'm finding that kind of annoying too. So yeah, it's just not working for me. I think the writing is pretty good. I do like the writing in here, and I think there are some like really funny lines throughout. It's just the characters aren't really working for me, and the plotting and pacing isn't really working for me. So it's a book that, while I'm not the right reader for it, I definitely think a lot of people are going to enjoy this. I think it's going to find a really devoted fan base, because it is, I would say, generally fun. It's just not fun for me personally. So that's where I'm falling with that one, which is a bummer because I was really looking forward to it, but you can't win them all. And also I don't want to continue spending time reading a book that I'm not really enjoying. I'm kind of finding that I'm not interested in picking it up when I'm not reading it, and because I've been going, okay, I need to finish this so that I can start the next video I'm gonna do, it's creating a bit of a logjam because I feel like I'm not allowing myself to read something else until I finish this one. So that's that, and I'm glad that I finally got to these arcs. I'm glad to be clearing a few things off of my arc list. I need to write some reviews and get those posted. But yeah, I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments below if you've read any of these, since I think all of them are backlist now, or not backlist exactly, but they've all already come out this year. Definitely let me know down in the comments if you've read any of them and what your thoughts were on them. And I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, I hope you consider giving them a like, giving this video a like, and maybe subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.